Okay, this is going to be recording for the homework applications for Chapter 13. And let's go ahead and dive in here for number 1 for Chapter 13. It says write an application that uses a file dialog object of the MSO file dialog file picker type. It should allow the user to select one or more files, and then it should list the chosen files in column A of the worksheet. So let's start with a module in this worksheet, and let's go ahead and give this sub a name. Let's do a little bit of random name here, and then we'll declare some variables. First, we need to declare our file dialog variable. The book uses FD. I'll just use that as well. In addition, the book also uses a not cancel variable, which is a Boolean variable. A Boolean is going to be true or false. And then we'll add a little comment here. We're going to do the file picker dialog box. And this is where we set that file dialog variable, FD. And we're going to use the code from the book, which is application.fileDialog. And then we identify our type. And we're going to do the file picker, which is the first one on the list. Now with the FD, we are going to show the dialog file picker and then type in what we've selected in that dialog into range A1. So first, let's use our variable here. This is going to help us know if someone actually picks something from the dialog box, meaning if they didn't cancel, what that means is they did pick something, right? So this allows us to be a little bit flexible with our dialog box. So if not cancel is true, that means they actually picked something. But if not cancel is false, that means that for whatever reason, when they ran the dialog box, they hit escape or cancel, and there was nothing selected. There was no file picked. So if no file is picked, if not cancel is true, which means there was a file that was picked, then we want to take that file and we want to just put it in the range A1. And we noted that there is a collection of items called selected items. We're going to take the name of that file and put it into A1. Let's see if this works. F8, 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 F8. So this is the line that actually shows the dialog picker. This is where we're declaring it. This is where we're setting it up. It's the .show that actually allows us to pick it. So I'll go ahead and pick, let's see, I'll come over here and pick a random file. I picked it, I clicked OK, and sure enough, it grabs that information and sticks it into A1. Let's do another test here. Let's run this again. I'll use F5, and let's say I cancel out of this dialog box. If I hit cancel, nothing happens. Nothing happens. So it did not execute this because I didn't choose anything, and it ended the sub. This looks like it works. So that is number 1. Okay, let's move to number 2. Exercise 2, again at the end of chapter 13. Write an application that uses a file dialog object of the file dialog open type. So this is another type. It should allow the user to select a single Excel file, which should then be opened in Excel. Hint, look up the allow multi-select and filters properties of the file dialog object in the object browser. Let's do that first. So I'm going to come over here, click on the little box with the colored boxes coming out, the object browser, or hit F2. And I can type in here, allow multi-select. And this is going to give us a little bit of information about the multi-select. Takes us to a website, gives us some example. It looks like allow multi-select is a true or false option, and we can allow the user to choose a single item or multiple items. So I think because number 2 says a single Excel, we're going to put allow multi-select equals false in our code. So let me go ahead and close this object browser, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new module, module 2 for this, or HW2. And let's begin this module with a sub, but with a name. We'll do exercise number 2. Come down here, we'll do some declarations. Let's declare our variable. Again, we need an office file dialog variable. And I'm going to go ahead and do the not cancel as Boolean variable again. We're going to come down and we're going to set up the dialog box using the code. The syntax here is application.fileDialog. And which one are we going to use? We're going to use the dialog open option, or the type. And with that FD, I'm going to go ahead and create a with construction. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to come and type in dot allow multi-select equals false. It means we just want one file to be selected. Next, we're going to identify our filters, and we're going to clear our filters here first. And what is filter referring to? Filter is referring to when you see the dialog open box, the filter is right here. This is a list of filters by default in the dialog box. What we're trying to do here is we are filtering specifically for the XLSX extensions. So the first thing we need to do in that case is clear the big long list of default filters and type in another filter. So the way we do that is filters.add, and first we need a description as a string and then an extension as a string. So we'll come and we'll put in here, we can put anything we want. So select single file as our description, and then we'll use some quotes, and we'll type in asterisk dot xlsx quotes. And this will actually filter the files in that dialog box to only those that have this extension. And then we'll use our not cancel and our show, and then we'll say if not cancel is equal, then what are we going to do? We're going to execute it, right? We're going to open it up. Execute is the name of the function or the command that opens up the file that was selected in the dialog box. And that was selected right here, right? Okay, so let's try this out. F8, F8, F8. With the FD, we're going to set some options here. Allow multi-select equals false. We're going to clear the filters out. We're going to add our own filter, and then we're going to show it. So notice here, select single file is what we typed in here, and it's .xlsx. We've actually created a new filter, and that filters everything in this folder, which is the downloads folder. So if I click cancel here, it's going to not open anything because nothing was selected. So let's go ahead and open this temp1. Let's do product sales. If I select product sales, and there it is. Product sales has been opened. And so we know that that works. Very good. That is problem number 2. Now we're ready for problem number 3. Problem 3 says write an application that uses a file dialog object of the file dialog save as type. After it saves the file in a name chosen by the user, it should display the new file name in a message box. Okay, so we're saving a file. After we save it, we want a message box that says what that name was. So we'll type a subname here, exercise 13 number 3. We're going to create some variables. Again, our FD as an office file dialog object. We're also going to declare our good old not cancel. And we're going to do the file picker dialog box. So I'll type in another comment there. And this is where we set up the FD. What is it equal to? It's equal to the application. And within that application object is the file dialog command. And we're going to use the file dialog save as type. So we can select that from the list. Now that we have set that up, we can do our with construction. And we can set up our not cancel to show. That will actually open up the dialog box. Then we can do our if statement. If the user selected or saved a file as, instead of doing cancel or closing out the window, if they actually saved a file, then we want to execute. And execute here is actually going to save that file because it's a save as dialog type. So that's what execute will do. In addition to that, we want to create a message box. The message box is going to say the name of the file, or the name of the saved file is, and we'll concatenate with the ampersand fd dot selected items 1. That will give us the name of the file that was saved. Let's test this. F8, 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 F8. F8 again will give us the dialog box. And this is going to save the file that I'm using right now. So because I have some macros in here, I'll probably want to save it as an XLSM file. And let me do that. I'll just type in temp 2. I already have a temp 1, so I'll just type in temp 2 XLSM file, click on save, and we should then see it save and a message box. So I'll click on save and the message box. The name of the saved file is, and that's the file name, including the file path. And I'll click on OK, and we have completed number 3. Now we're ready for exercise 4, again at the end of chapter 13. This exercise says write an application. Let's see, can I zoom in a little bit? Maybe not that much. Write an application that uses a file dialog object of the folder picker. After a user selects a folder, the application should then use an object to find all the files in that folder with an extension of XLSX or docx. And these should be listed in column A. Okay, so let's write that. Let's create another sub. Number 4. Let's declare some variables. We need our dialog box variable. And here we're also going to need something that we haven't seen before, but chapter talks about a file system object. And this is how it's going to allow us to search through a folder for a particular file. I'm going to add also a path variable for a string that we'll use. And I also want to do a not cancel. And now I think we're ready to start. So let's go ahead and pick a file. So we're going to set that up just like we did before. We're going to set fd equal to application dot file dialog. Let's see, I think I spelled application wrong. That's why it's not coming up. I'm waiting for the IntelliSense to come up, and it wasn't coming up. There, now it's coming up. Folder picker. So we're not doing file picker. We're actually picking a folder this time. So now that we've set that up, we can create a with construction. With this folder it's chosen, we're going to see if not cancel, then show. And here I want to create I want to take that selected item that was chosen and put it into the path variable. Else, well, I guess there's a couple different ways to do that. Else here, if it's not chosen, we actually want to exit the sub. So this is a little bit different than before. Because we have some more steps involved in this sub, we're going to create an exit sub option here if in the case they just don't select a path, or the window gets closed, or they cancel out at that point. Now, once we have the folder chosen, we'll come and set this to a folder path. So let's create another variable up here, and we're going to dim a folder path as a scripting folder. And this is again a type of object that's described in the chapter. And then for each folder path, we're going to look at a file for each folder path. So we're going to dim a file as a scripting file. That's going to allow us to examine each file. And again, we need to examine it because we have to see what kind of extension exists for each file. So these two variables are going to help us out with that. And then we're going to do a counter. We're going to want to count. It's not asked for here in the book. This is for my own sake. I'm interested to know how many files were found. So I think that would be a helpful addition here to this particular program. Okay, so we have additional variables declared. We're going to come down here and set this equal to fso.getFolder and the path of that folder. So this is the path that was selected up here. We're going to put that into a get folder, part of a scripting folder object, and that's going to allow us to examine each file. So then we can say for each file in folder path, we're going to do a loop, and we're going to check each file in this folder. What are we going to check for? We're going to check to see if that extension is an XLSX or a DOCX. And if it is, we're going to put that file name into column A. So how should we do this? I want to do a little bit more debugging here just for my own benefit. So I'm going to put in a debug print command, and I'm going to say if for each file in the folder path that we choose, whatever that folder path that the user chooses. For each of those files, I want to know what that file name is, just to make sure that we're getting in the right place. And I want to debug.print. That's going to put it into the immediate window down here. So we won't see it in the Excel file. We're just going to see it down here for our purposes. And then here comes the checker. So we're going to check if the file extension is a .xlsx or if it is a .docx. Then we're going to do something else. So let me walk through this a little bit more detailed. This is the lowercase. We're just lowercasing everything in here just to make it a comparison, right? A single comparison. We're going to, sometimes file names may have used capital letters as the extension. If you can actually type that in manually and it will save in capital letters. So the first part is we're going to use lowercase to make the comparison. Next is we're going to take the right 5 digits, 5 characters of the file path. So the file path actually includes the file name. So we're going to take the last 5 characters of that, which is here. This is 5 characters. And we were going to test. We're going to see if this last 5 characters is equal to this. If it is, then we're going to want to print it over here in column A. Or we're also testing to see if that extension is a docx. So we're going to do the same 5 characters, the right 5 characters, the farthest to the right 5 characters of the file path, which again includes the file name and the extension. If that is .docx, then we're also going to print that over here in column A. So if either one of those are true, we're going to say, give me range A1, give me an offset, because I want to print these in column A. And this is where the counter comes in helpful. So I'm going to say counter, but I don't want to move the column. I just want to be in column A. So I'll put 0 for column offset. And I'll do dot value, because I want to put a value into that cell. What do I want to put in? I want to put just the name of that file in that cell. And at this point, I want to add my counter. I want to increment my counter by 1. So again, we're checking to see if the extension is XLSX or if the extension is docx. If either one of those is true, we're going to print that name, file name, into column A, increase our counter, and go to the next file. Let's see how we do here. So if I click F8, 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 F8. Oh, look at that. See, we missed this. Not cancel is not set. So it's always going to miss showing the dialog box. How about that? Yeah, that's not good. Let's change this up a little bit here. Let's say if show, then put the path into the path variable. So I'm going to drag my yellow arrow back up here and rerun this. And now it should run. By default, it's going to run that. And if this is false, or if it's closed out, or I hit cancel, then it's going to exit the sub. Let's test that. So if I hit cancel, boom, we're done. That's nice. Let's run this again. F5, there it is. Hit cancel, we're done. Okay, great. So this is a little bit better construction. In fact, we don't even need the not cancel here in this case. So I'm going to take out that variable above and do F8 again. Here's our F8. Now we're asked to select a folder. So which folder? I think this is good. I'll just use my downloads folder. I have some miscellaneous files in there that I don't need to keep, but I know I have some XLSX and docx files. So I'll click OK. Now we've done that. So this is now true. And now we're going to store the path in the path variable. And there it is. There's my path variable. Users, there's my download folder. on my C drive. So we've completed this if statement, end if, and then set folder path. This is where we'll get the folder path as a scripting folder object. That allows us to do the comparisons below. So I'll click F8. Now that we have the folder path, which is my downloads folder, we're going to check in each file. Uh-oh, it says debug. Why is that debug? Oh, because I'm missing one option. So this says in the folder, but I need something else in addition to the folder path. And that's what's called .files. And this is in the book. I think I just forgot to put it in my code. This is in example section 13.5. If you want to look at the code for that example, they use this command of .files. So that's going to make a list basically of all the files in this folder path, and it's going to allow me to look at each file in that folder path. So now that I've got that, let me click F8. That works great, and we're going to click F8 again. That prints my file name to the bottom here. This is the first file name. I don't even know what that is. Operation Strategy Application Exercise. It's a CSV file. Look at that. So now it's going to make a comparison. It's going to take the 5 right characters of this file and check to see if it's an XLSX or a DOCX. It is not, right? It would actually be y.csv. So this is going to be false, and it's going to skip this part and end the end if, and then go to the next file. Let's go to the next one. This one is, starts right here. 1.2 plus VBA is the next name of the file. So this one ends in .xlsm. So this also should be false. And false. So this is working. I'm going to go ahead and hit F5. Now let me keep hitting F8 until we can find one that has XLSM. There's one. Okay, we hit one. 2.4 practice XLSM. That was the name of the file path. So this was true, and therefore we should see it. There it is, in A1, and our counter should now be 1. Okay, this looks good. I'm going to go ahead and click F5 now, and hopefully we should see all those files. Look at that. So we've printed every file name in the immediate window. That was just for our own benefit. But if you look here in column A, all of these should have, there's an XLSX and there's a DOCX. Great. Very good. If we wanted to, we could come down here after the loops through each file, and we could say range A1 dot offset counter comma 0 dot value equals counter, and that would actually just say how many files were in there, right? So if I click F8, F5 again, click on my downloads folder, click OK, it's going to run through all those files again, and sure enough, it found 76, which is true. So there is exercise 4. That was a good one. And now finally for exercise 7 for the homework, the end of chapter 13. Suppose a company has a lot of Excel files for its customers. Assume that all files for a given customer have a customer's name, such as Davidson. You don't know the exact naming convention. You know that the file begins with the customer's name. Write an application that asks for a customer's name and the VBA folder where they're stored, and then list all of the file names in column A. Okay, so let's start this one. I'll create a sub. This is number 7. And we'll declare some variables. We'll declare our file dialog variable. We're going to do some folder searching. So we're going to create a scripting object, file system object. We'll also include a path object as we did before. And we'll do a folder path as a scripting folder. We'll also do our file as a scripting file so that we can check each file. We'll also do a counter. And then we also need a customer name. So there's our variables. And let's create our input box. So the first thing we're going to run is an input box. Let's say enter customer's last name. That is our input box. Once we have that, we're going to do our file picker dialog box. I'll insert a comment there. I probably should do more comments. This is where we're going to set our object that we created memory for up here, the object that we declared. We're going to specify that as a file dialog box and give it a type, which is going to be the folder picker. We're going to pick a folder. Oops, I hit enter without the parentheses and put it in red. Now with that folder, we're going to do some stuff. What are we going to do? Whoops, end with. Well, let's do our show. If show is true, so if there's a path, I like to do my end ifs right after I create my ifs. Then we're going to put that into a path. We're going to do selected items. That's going to be the path that was returned from our dialog box. And we're going to put that into a path variable. Else, if there is no folder selected, we're just going to exit the sub. We're just going to stop running. And that exits the if loop, it exits the with construction, completely exits the sub when that's run. But if we do have a folder selected, we're going to put that folder path to work. First thing is we're going to create a get folders path, get folder path, and that's going to put our scripting folder into this scripting variable folder path so that we can search it. And then for each file in the folder path, list of files, right? That's a collection of files. What are we going to do? We're going to create a loop. So for each file, we are going to try to figure out if the customer name is in that file name. How do we do that? Let me go ahead and do another debug.print just to give us a sense for what we're dealing with here. And I'll go ahead and use the file name again. Again, the debug print will put the file name into the immediate window, not into the Excel spreadsheet, but into the immediate window. And so let's check this out. So what we need to do is we need to do a comparison. So we'll do an if statement. And what are we going to compare? We're going to compare the file name, see if it's like our customer name. So we have customer from the input box above, but we also need to see if there's anything after that customer name. So we're going to put a little asterisk in there. We're going to use the word like. We're going to see if this file name is like the customer name and then anything else. This asterisk is a wildcard that says you could have anything else after that customer name in the file name. If that's true, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to go put it in the spreadsheet. So we're going to do our range a1.offset counter 0.value is equal to what? It's just that file name. That's what we want to be printed in that A1 section. And then we'll do our counter. We're going to increase our counter by 1 in def. And then finally, if we want to, we can put something very nice at the bottom that says hey, we found this many in that folder. That is what we got so far. Let's test it out. F8, F8. That's good so far. No error messages. Here's our input box. I'm going to use a folder that I know has VBA files that start with VBA as our customer's last name, just because I know that there's files that start with VBA in the folder that I'm going to choose. So I know that works. So I'm going to type in VBA and click OK. And so we have a customer name called VBA in this case. We're going to click F8 again. That's going to give us the setting up of our folder. Now with this folder, we're going to say, give me the actual folder that you want me to test. Again, I'm going to use my downloads folder, so I'll click on that. Click OK. And it is going to go very fast through all of those files. And for each file, it's going to check. It's going to print, first of all, it's going to print the file name. So this list right here in the immediate window is a list of all the file names in my download folders. In my downloads folder. That's where it's doing this debug print. It's printing every file down there. Now it's going to check after it prints. It says if the file name is like something that starts with VBA and then something after it, then print it in column A. So the first name that it found was VBA plus 1.2 and 3. That was the first file name that it saw. We don't have the full record here. It doesn't give us the full record in the immediate window. That started with VBA. And so if you look at this column here, this column is 17 files in my downloads folder that begin with VBA. Some have pluses or minus after the name. Some have other characters, letters after the name. It found a total of 17. Some are XLSM, some are doc files. These are the files in that folder that start with VBA. So that is, in essence, problem number 7. Okay, I think that's it. Thanks, everybody.